Unexpected accountability rarely announces itself with a warning. It doesn't wait for permission, nor does it arrive when life feels prepared. It shows up uninvited, often wrapped in inconvenience, demanding attention at the exact moment when energy is lowest and patience is thin. It appears in ordinary lives, not as a grand challenge but as a quiet collision between duty and reality. In that collision, there is no time to rehearse responses or polish explanations. What exists in that moment is raw responsibility, standing exposed and undeniable. Accountability is usually discussed as something formal, tied to rules, contracts, or expectations written on paper. But unexpected accountability lives outside those boundaries. It exists in the spaces where systems fail to account for humanity, where roles overlap, and where choices must be made without guidance. It asks not what is required by policy, but what is required by conscience. And when it arrives, it strips away excuses, leaving only truth and consequence facing each other in real time. There is a particular weight to accountability that comes without notice. It presses harder because it offers no preparation. 1 minute life moves forward in routine patterns, and the next, a decision carries the power to alter perceptions, relationships, and futures. In those moments, responsibility cannot be deferred or delegated. It must be owned immediately, without comfort or support, often under the gaze of someone who holds power or judgment. Unexpected accountability also exposes imbalance. Authority often assumes control until it meets responsibility grounded in reality. Titles and positions feel solid until confronted by lived obligation. When accountability rises from necessity rather than choice, it carries a different gravity. It is not performative or strategic. It is instinctive. It exists because someone must stand between vulnerability and harm, regardless of cost. In these moments, fear often speaks first. Fear of consequences, fear of misunderstanding, fear of being labeled irresponsible by those who see only outcomes and not causes. But unexpected accountability demands something stronger than fear. It demands presence. It demands the courage to stand still instead of retreating, to speak plainly instead of defensively, and to accept whatever follows without bitterness. There is also a loneliness attached to this kind of accountability. It is rarely shared. Others may witness it, but few truly carry its weight. Decisions made under unexpected accountability are often misunderstood because context remains invisible. Outsiders see absence, delay, or deviation, but not the chain of necessity that forced those outcomes. This isolation sharpens the experience, making each word spoken and each choice made feel heavier. Yet within this weight, there is clarity. Unexpected accountability removes the luxury of indecision. It forces alignment between values and actions. In that alignment, there is strength even when the outcome is uncertain. Standing by responsibility, especially when it disrupts expectations, reveals integrity that cannot be taught or demanded. It emerges naturally when someone refuses to abandon what matters most. This form of accountability also challenges the idea that responsibility is something assigned by others. Instead, it shows responsibility as something claimed. It exists whether or not it is recognized. It operates regardless of approval. And when confronted by authority, it does not bow easily because it is rooted in necessity rather than compliance. That difference changes the dynamic of power, even if only for a moment. Unexpected accountability has a way of humanizing situations that systems often reduce to numbers or schedules. It introduces nuance where rigidity once ruled. When spoken aloud, calmly and without embellishment, it forces listeners to reconcile assumptions with reality. Sometimes that reconciliation is uncomfortable. Sometimes it is resisted. But it cannot be undone once truth enters the space. There is also growth hidden within these moments. Not the kind celebrated with applause, but the kind that reshapes self-perception. Facing unexpected accountability and choosing to honor it builds an inner certainty that remains long after the moment passes. It becomes a reference point, a reminder that responsibility was not avoided even when avoidance seemed easier. This kind of accountability teaches that strength does not always look like control. Sometimes it looks like standing still while pressure pushes forward. Sometimes it looks like explaining a decision without anger or apology. Sometimes it looks like accepting judgment without surrendering dignity. These moments redefine what it means to be dependable, not as someone who always conforms, but as someone who consistently protects what depends on them. Unexpected accountability also leaves a mark on those who witness it. Even when unspoken, it lingers. It disrupts simple narratives and forces reconsideration. Authority may retreat slightly. Assumptions may loosen. Rules may bend, not out of weakness, but out of recognition that life does not always fit cleanly within structured expectations. There is no guarantee of reward for honoring unexpected accountability. Sometimes the cost remains high and the sacrifice unseen, but there is a quiet assurance that comes from knowing responsibility was met honestly. That assurance does not erase struggle, but it steadies the spirit in the midst of it. In a world that often values convenience over commitment, unexpected accountability stands as a quiet resistance. It refuses shortcuts. It insists on presence. It demands action rooted in care rather than compliance. And while it may arrive at midnight, unannounced and unwelcome, it carries with it the power to reveal character more clearly than any planned test ever could, leaving behind a moment suspended between consequence and understanding, where responsibility stands firm, waiting to be acknowledged, questioned, or carried forward into whatever follows next. Quiet strength rarely announces itself. It does not demand recognition or validation, and it does not arrive with applause. It exists in routines repeated day after day, in decisions made when no one is watching, and in sacrifices that leave no visible mark. Single parenthood carries this quiet strength in its purest form, built not on choice alone but on necessity, resilience, and endurance. It is a strength shaped by responsibility that cannot be postponed and care that cannot be compromised. There is an unspoken rhythm to life lived this way. Mornings begin before exhaustion has a chance to fade, and nights end long after energy has been spent. Every task carries double meaning, serving both survival and stability. Work is not just employment, it is protection. Home is not just shelter, it is refuge. Each action must account for another life, another future, another set of needs that cannot be set aside. Quiet strength reveals itself in adaptability. Plans shift constantly, often without warning. Schedules collapse under unexpected calls, illnesses, or emergencies. Yet forward motion continues, not because conditions are ideal, but because stopping is not an option. This adaptability is not chaotic, it is deliberate. It reflects an ability to absorb disruption without losing direction, to reorganize priorities in real time while maintaining emotional steadiness. There is also emotional restraint woven into this strength. Worry is carried internally, rarely voiced. Fear exists, but it does not dominate decisions. Frustration arises, but it is managed carefully, often delayed until solitude allows release. This restraint is not suppression, it is protection. It shields younger eyes and ears from burdens they should not carry, even when those burdens weigh heavily. Single parenthood demands constant presence. There are no shifts to trade, no shared responsibilities to redistribute. Every success and every mistake lands in the same place. This reality creates an awareness that sharpens attention and deepens care. Listening becomes instinctive. Observation becomes habit. Anticipation becomes survival. These skills develop quietly, without instruction, refined through repetition and necessity. The strength required here is not the kind that pushes outward. It turns inward, reinforcing patience, endurance, and resolve. It does not seek dominance or recognition. It seeks continuity. It is the strength that ensures meals appear, that comfort is offered after long days, that reassurance is given even when certainty is scarce. This strength often goes unnoticed because it functions smoothly, masking the effort beneath its surface. There is also a moral clarity that emerges. Decisions are filtered through impact rather than convenience. Short-term ease is often sacrificed for long-term stability. This clarity does not simplify choices, it complicates them. Every option must be weighed against potential consequences for someone who depends completely on consistency and care. This responsibility refines judgment, fostering maturity that cannot be rushed. Isolation is an unspoken companion. Without another adult to share daily burdens, thoughts often remain internal. Conversations that might otherwise offer relief are replaced by silent endurance. Yet within this isolation, self-reliance strengthens. Confidence grows not from encouragement but from survival. Each obstacle overcome reinforces the knowledge that persistence is possible, even without support. Quiet strength also lives in emotional availability. Despite fatigue, attention is given. Despite stress, kindness is offered. Despite uncertainty, reassurance is provided. This availability requires intentional effort, drawing from reserves that are frequently low. It is sustained by love that prioritizes presence over perfection, understanding that consistency matters more than flawlessness. Society often misunderstands this strength because it does not align with traditional markers of success. There are no visible promotions for emotional labor, no awards for sustained patience, no metrics for resilience. Yet this strength builds foundations that last far beyond measurable achievements. It shapes character, stability, and trust in ways that ripple outward over time. This form of strength also challenges stereotypes. It contradicts assumptions of limitation and exposes the inadequacy of simplified narratives. Responsibility handled alone does not diminish capability, it often enhances it. Skills sharpen under pressure. Empathy deepens through lived experience. Perspective broadens through constant negotiation between needs and resources. Quiet strength persists even when mistakes occur. There is no illusion of perfection. Errors happen, exhaustion shows, and doubt creeps in. Yet accountability remains. Corrections are made, lessons absorbed, and forward motion resumes. This resilience is not dramatic, it is steady. It does not seek redemption through spectacle, but through consistency. There is also an undercurrent of hope. Not a loud or idealistic hope, but a practical one. Hope that routines will hold. Hope that effort will accumulate. Hope that stability today will become opportunity tomorrow. This hope fuels endurance, providing just enough light to continue through uncertainty. Single parenthood reveals that strength is not always forceful or visible. Sometimes it is measured in restraint, patience, and reliability. It is the ability to keep showing up, to keep caring deeply without guarantee of reward. This quiet strength becomes embedded in daily life, shaping actions and attitudes so thoroughly that it feels ordinary, even though it is anything but, carrying forward through long days and short nights, sustained by commitment rather than recognition. Power is often associated with volume, authority, or the ability to dominate a room. Yet there is a different kind of power that operates beneath the surface, one that does not rely on raised voices or forceful gestures. This power emerges when truth is spoken calmly, without aggression or apology, grounded in clarity rather than emotion. It is a power that unsettles expectations because it refuses to play the role of either victim or challenger. Instead, it stands steady, allowing honesty to do the work. Calm truth carries weight because it removes distraction. When words are delivered without anger, they cannot be dismissed as reactionary. When explanations are offered without defensiveness, they resist being framed as excuses. This composure shifts attention away from tone and toward substance. Listeners are left with the message itself, unshielded by assumptions about emotional instability or ulterior motives. There is discipline required to speak truth calmly, especially in moments of confrontation. Instinct often urges self-protection through justification, escalation, or withdrawal. Calm truth resists these impulses. It requires control over internal reactions and trust in the validity of one's own reality. This discipline does not suppress emotion, it organizes it, channeling feeling into clarity rather than chaos. When authority is confronted by calm truth, the usual hierarchy destabilizes. Authority expects either compliance or rebellion. Calm truth offers neither. It does not submit, and it does not attack. This unexpected stance creates uncertainty, forcing those in power to engage rather than command. In this space, authority is no longer absolute, it must reckon with reality as presented, not as assumed. Calm truth also carries credibility. It suggests preparation, reflection, and confidence. Even when spoken spontaneously, it feels considered because it is rooted in lived experience. This credibility is difficult to undermine because it does not depend on external validation. It stands on coherence between words and reality, making contradiction risky and dismissal inadequate. There is a psychological impact to this form of communication. Calm truth slows interactions down. It interrupts escalation cycles and reduces opportunities for misinterpretation. When one person remains composed, the emotional temperature of the exchange often lowers, regardless of the initial tension. This shift creates space for listening, even if reluctantly. This power does not seek to win arguments. Its purpose is not dominance but alignment. Calm truth seeks recognition rather than victory. It presents facts, context, and consequence in a way that invites understanding without demanding agreement. This approach reframes conflict as a moment of exposure rather than confrontation. Speaking truth calmly also protects dignity. It allows the speaker to remain intact regardless of the response. Even if dismissed, the act itself affirms self-respect. There is no need to regret harsh words or emotional outbursts. The clarity remains untouched by reaction. This preservation of dignity is itself a form of power, reinforcing internal stability. Calm truth can feel risky because it removes emotional armor. Without anger or defensiveness, vulnerability becomes visible. But this vulnerability is not weakness. It is transparency. It communicates confidence in the truth itself, trusting that facts and sincerity are sufficient. This trust often disarms resistance because it leaves little to push against. In professional or hierarchical settings, calm truth exposes the limits of authority. Rules and expectations rely on assumptions of uniformity. Calm truth introduces complexity. It highlights exceptions without demanding exemption. This distinction matters. It shifts the conversation from enforcement to evaluation, from punishment to understanding. There is also an ethical dimension to calm truth. It respects both the speaker and the listener. It does not manipulate through emotion or pressure through volume. It allows others the dignity of choice in their response. This respect often invites reciprocity, even when initial reactions are skeptical. The power of calm truth lies in its endurance. Loud arguments fade quickly, remembered more for their intensity than their content. Calm truth lingers. It echoes in quiet moments, resurfacing in reflection. It becomes harder to ignore over time because it was delivered without distortion. This persistence makes it influential beyond the immediate exchange. Calm truth also teaches self-trust. Each time it is spoken, confidence grows. The speaker learns that clarity can hold ground even under scrutiny. This learning reduces fear of confrontation, not by eliminating stakes, but by strengthening internal resolve. Future challenges become less intimidating because the method has proven effective. There is restraint embedded in calm truth. It chooses what to say and what to leave unsaid. It avoids embellishment and exaggeration. This restraint enhances credibility and reduces opportunities for misinterpretation. What remains is essential, precise, and difficult to refute. This form of communication also models an alternative to aggression. It demonstrates that assertiveness does not require hostility. In environments where power is often exercised through intimidation, calm truth introduces a different standard. It challenges others to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. Ultimately, calm truth redefines strength. It shows that control over oneself can outweigh control over others. It reveals that honesty delivered with composure can halt momentum, shift perspectives, and alter outcomes. This power does not announce itself loudly, but it commands attention through its steadiness, leaving authority momentarily paused, confronted not by rebellion, but by reality spoken clearly and without fear. This story reminds us that real power is not found in position, noise, or control, but in responsibility carried with integrity. Unexpected moments reveal character, quiet strength sustains life through hardship, and calm truth has the ability to stop authority and invite understanding. When accountability is met with dignity and honesty, assumptions fall away and respect takes their place. In those brief, unscripted encounters, humanity speaks louder than rules, and resilience becomes visible. Such moments do not ask for praise, they simply stand as proof that courage, care, and truth can reshape even the hardest situations.